Hey there, everyone, and welcome to Pour and Explore, a wine, food, and travel podcast. I'm your host, Nick Elliott, the wine guy. I'd love to be your go-to guide for all things wine, food, and the amazing places they take us. Here on Pour and Explore, we'll sip, savor, and wander through the exciting world of wine, discuss incredible cuisines, and uncover the stories behind unforgettable destinations. Each week, I'll bring you lively conversations with wine experts, chefs, travel pros, and fellow enthusiasts. We'll share practical tips, hilarious tales, and plenty of inspiration to fuel your next adventure. So grab a glass, pull up a chair, and join me as we pour, explore, and celebrate the good life. Let's dive in. Hello to all of my wine lovers, bookworms, and cocktail enthusiasts. Welcome back to Pour and Explore, the podcast where we sip, savor, and set off on journeys across the world. I'm your host, Nick Elliott, certified sommelier, and your guide to the fascinating crossroads of wine, food, and travel. Today we're diving into a topic that's part history, part literature, and all fun. The legendary drinking habits of some of your favorite famous writers, and the iconic bars, cafes, and wine spots where they sipped and they scribed. From Hemingway's champagne-fueled nights in Paris to F. Scott Fitzgerald's gin-soaked parties, and even Dorothy Parker's martini-drenched wit, these literary legends weren't just masters of prose, they were masters of the pour. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's take a trip through wine, whiskey, and the written word. So you might ask yourself, why do writers and booze have such a long and, let's call it, storied history? Many writers believed, number one, they called it the liquid muse. They believed that alcohol unlocked creativity. This, of course, was not strictly a writer's thing. Many artists of all kinds definitely loved the liquid muse effect as well. And it helped them, let's call it, escape reality. Some drank to fuel their arts, others drank to numb life pressures and put them into a state where they could write beautiful poems or amazing novels. And it definitely has an effect on what we do. I'm sure you know all about that if you're listening to this show. The cafe and bar culture for decades, these were literary salons. People would go there to people watch, to see what was going on in the world, and to gain inspiration. These are places where writers gathered, they debated, they talked to one another, swapped ideas and swapped stories, and of course, shared a drink or two. Now, whether alcohol actually made them better, that's up for debate. But what is undeniable is that some of the greatest literary works were penned in a haze of whiskey, in a haze of wine, and the occasional absinthe fuel visions. All right, so let's get into the legendary writers and their signature drinks, starting with the one Ernest Hemingway. Hemingway loved champagne. He loved daiquiris. He was by things that he saw, things that he drank, and people that he met. You can't talk about drinking writers without starting with Papa Hemingway. The man didn't just drink. He drank with a purpose. He drank with style. And let's be honest, he was probably a little reckless. Hemingway loved champagne. It was, of course, his go-to for celebrations or just a random afternoon. It didn't necessarily matter. Hemingway loved absinthe as well. Novel Death in the Afternoon. I'm sorry, his drink, Death in the Afternoon, was champagne mixed with absinthe. Just put them both together and absolutely amazing. Hemingway loved daiquiris as well, and one of his favorite places to go was, of course, Havana, Cuba. El Floridita in Havana was where he famously drank Papadoblas, extra rum, no sugar, and absolutely pure Hemingway. If you want to visit some of the places that he frequented during his time, He loved Havana and he loved the El Floridita there in Havana, which is still open today. I'm going to drop in the links to a lot of the places that I'm talking today in the show notes so you can check them out. They're still around, still visitable, and you can definitely check out some of the fun things on their websites. Check the show notes for that. Of course, Venice is famous for Harry's Bar, and that is where he frequented during his Italian adventures. Really good stuff. And when in Paris, he would always go to the Ritz in Paris, where he famously liberated that hotel post World War II. Hemingway was a fun guy, an amazing author, and he loved a good cocktail and a great glass of wine. Hemingway once said, "Always do sober what you said you'd do drunk. That'll teach you to keep your mouth shut." Wise words, Hemingway, wise words. All right, let's move on to another great writer living the Gatsby life, Mr. F. Scott Fitzgerald. Ernest Hemingway was about rugged, adventurous drinking. Fitzgerald was all about high society cocktails, jazz age, excess, and champagne-soaked parties. He and Zelda embodied the Roaring Twenties, and his drink of choice, gin Ricky, a little gin, a little lime, a little soda water to cleanse your palate. And that was certainly his Great Gatsby era cocktail, to be sure. You'll hear me say champagne a lot during this episode because, of course, it's not only amazing, it's a great way to celebrate. And in the specific note of F. Scott Fitzgerald, the 20s, the 1920s, we're in the 2020s right now. The 1920s, 100 years ago, were about popping bottles, 100%. And of course, you couldn't have a great drink experience in the 20s era bar without having a little sidecar as well. The Prohibition era classic. Some of Fitzgerald's favorite spots to drink. He and Hemingway loved to hang out at the Ritz in Paris, of course. The Plaza Hotel in New York City really did inspire the world of Gatsby, his famous novel. And of course, any place you could find a good glass or a good bottle or two or three of sparkling wine, most specifically champagne. Fitzgerald once said, "Too much of anything is bad, but too much champagne is just right." And that's a motto that I can absolutely get behind. You might be a fan of the talented Dorothy Parker, as she is sometimes referred to as the Martini Queen. She loved a great martini and gin martinis especially. Definitely the way to go. The classic ageless gin martini, which are my favorites. Bombay Sapphire gin, by the way, is my go-to. And if anyone could drink and throw verbal daggers at the same time, it was Dorothy Parker. She was a brilliant writer, critic, and the founding member of the Algonquin Round Table. And some of her favorite drinks, as I just mentioned, extra dry, gin martini, whiskey sours. A little bourbon wasn't as famous in her time, but great American whiskey or Canadian whiskey sour definitely hit the spot with Dorothy Parker. One of her famous quotes is, "I like to have a martini, 2 at the very most. 3, I'm under the table. 4, I'm under my host." Oh boy, she had quite the sense of humor. If you want to visit some of the amazing places that Dorothy Parker visited in her time, the Blue Bar at the Algonquin Hotel in New York City is definitely the heart of her literary world. All right, let's talk about some other famous literary artists and the things that they loved. James Joyce was a huge fan of Bordeaux style wines, especially from Bordeaux, and he loved Guinness. And he would drink at Davy Byrne's, which is still open today. That's over in Dublin, so you can definitely check that out. Again, check the show notes for the links to some of these places that I'm talking about today. Hunter S. Thompson was a big fan of my favorite go-to whiskey, which is Wild Turkey. Absolutely loved it. And he was also a great Scotch drinker as well. Edgar Allan Poe, he loved sherry and Madeira. He was all about fortified wines, port, sherry, Madeira, to go along with all of those dark and stormy nights that he wrote about. We're going to call her an author. She was an amazing chef, an amazing author, and Miss Julia Child loved French wine. She was a big Beaujolais fan and loved drinking Burgundy wines as well. Um, Absolutely fantastic, and I love everything that Julia Childs ever wrote on screen, her TV shows, and most importantly, her recipes. Writers and drinks do go together like a great book and a cozy chair. And whether they drank for inspiration or self-destruction, they definitely left behind stories that will continue to captivate us to this day. So you definitely want to check out some of these places. All right, my fellow wine lovers and literary explorers, that is going to be a wrap for today's episode. And whether you're sipping champagne like Hemingway, throwing back a gin Rickey like Fitzgerald, or raising a glass of whiskey to Faulkner, I hope this episode gave you a little taste of history, a little taste of literature, and some more information on these legendary libations. If you love this episode, please leave a review, make sure you subscribe, and let me know. Hit me up in social media, comments on this podcast. Who is your favorite literary drinker? Let me know. Pop those comments in. I would love to hear from you. And I am always looking for some new great stories. Also, check out our website. That is thewineguy.vin. That's thewineguy.vin. I'd definitely love to see you there, as well as TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, etc., etc., etc. Until next time, everybody, this is Nick Elliott, your host of the Pour and Explore podcast, reminding you to keep wondering and wandering. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Pour and Explore. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your stories, and your questions, so you can drop me a line at cheers@thewineguy.vin. That's cheers@thewineguy.vin. Or let's connect on TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook. Grab those links on my website at thewineguy.vin. Until next time, let's keep wondering and wandering. Cheers, everyone.